15 most dangerous foods you need to stop eating. You're not getting sick from one bad meal. You're getting slowly worn down by foods you trust every single day without a second thought. And in the next few minutes, you're going to see 15 normal foods that major health studies link to serious long-term damage. And the number one most dangerous one is probably sitting in your kitchen right now. 15. Sugary breakfast cereals. Most people don't think twice about breakfast. You wake up, you're still half asleep, and you just want something fast, something easy, something that feels normal. So you pour a bowl of cereal. It looks harmless. Bright colors, crunchy texture, and even words on the box like whole grain or vitamins included, which makes it feel like you're making a smart choice. But here's the problem. Most sugary breakfast cereals are ultra-processed foods designed more like dessert than real nutrition. They are loaded with added sugars and refined grains, stripped of fiber and anything that would slow digestion. So the moment you eat them, your body reacts instantly, but your blood sugar shoots up very quickly. Therefore, you feel a short burst of energy and alertness. And then, just as fast, it crashes. And that crash is where the real cycle begins. Because suddenly you feel tired again, you feel hungry again, and even though you just ate, your brain starts pushing you toward more food, more sugar, more quick energy. But the real issue is not just the moment you eat it. It's what happens when this becomes a daily routine. Because over time, your body is constantly dealing with these sharp spikes and crashes in blood sugar. Your insulin system has to work harder and harder just to keep balance. And when that continues for months and years, it increases the risk of weight gain, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. But the most dangerous part is this. It doesn't feel dangerous at all. It feels normal. It feels like breakfast. And that's exactly why it quietly becomes a problem without most people ever realizing it. 14. White bread and refined grains. Now let's move to something even more common. White bread. It's in sandwiches, burgers, toast, snacks, and almost every quick meal you can think of. It's soft, cheap, and everywhere, which is exactly why most people never question it. But white bread is not as simple as it looks. It is made from refined flour, which means the fiber, the natural nutrients, and the slower digesting parts of the grain have all been removed. What's left is a fast-digesting carbohydrate that behaves very similarly to sugar inside your body. So when you eat it, the effect is almost identical to sugary cereals, but your blood sugar rises very quickly. Therefore, you get a quick burst of energy, and then shortly after, a crash. And that crash is where the cycle repeats itself. You feel tired. You feel hungry again sooner than expected. And without realizing it, you start eating more often just to keep your energy up. But something deeper is happening in the background. Because when this pattern repeats every day, your body slowly starts adapting to it. Your hunger signals become less reliable, your energy becomes more unstable, and your metabolism begins shifting towards storing more fat instead of maintaining balance. And the most dangerous part is that there's no obvious warning sign. You don't feel sick. You don't feel immediate damage. You just feel normal, while the pattern builds quietly over time. And that's the real risk, because it doesn't feel like something is wrong. It just feels like everyday eating. If you are enjoying the video, make sure you subscribe. 13. French fries and deep-fried foods. Now let's talk about something almost everyone knows is not the healthiest, but still eats anyway. French fries and deep-fried foods. Because the moment they come out hot, golden, and crispy, your brain stops thinking about health. It switches straight into reward mode. But what most people don't see is what happens during the frying process. When foods are cooked at very high temperatures in oil, especially in fast food settings, where oils are reused again and again, they begin to form harmful compounds. Some of these compounds, like acrylamide, have been linked in studies to potential long-term health risks when consumed regularly. But your body is not just getting potatoes or meat, therefore it's receiving a heavy load of oxidized oils, high calories, and inflammatory compounds. And over time, that combination puts stress on your cardiovascular system. And here's where it becomes tricky. Because fries don't feel like a full meal mistake. They feel like a side dish, something small, something you can add without thinking. But that's exactly how the problem builds, because these foods are extremely calorie-dense but not very filling in a lasting way. So you eat them, feel satisfied for a moment, and then your body starts looking for more food again. And when that pattern repeats, it slowly contributes to weight gain, inflammation, and increased risk of heart-related issues over time. But the most deceptive part is that it never feels like a warning food. It feels normal. It feels expected. It feels like part of everyday eating. 12. Potato chips and ultra-processed snack foods. Now let's move to something even more engineered. Potato chips and ultra-processed snacks. If there is one food category designed to override your self-control without you noticing, it's this one. Because you don't usually sit down and carefully plan to eat chips. It just happens. You open a bag, maybe while watching TV, working or relaxing, and suddenly half or even the entire bag is gone. And the reason isn't just willpower, it's design. These foods are created through what scientists call hyperpalatability. That means they combine salt, fat, and crunch in a way that hits your brain's reward system extremely efficiently. But your brain doesn't get a proper "I'm full" signal. Therefore, you keep eating even after your body has had enough calories. And over time, this leads to unconscious overconsumption. And the problem builds quietly, because each time you do it, your body is taking in excess calories, high sodium, refined oils, and artificial additives, without you even noticing the total amount. And when this becomes a regular habit, it contributes to weight gain, high blood pressure, and long-term inflammation in the body. But the most dangerous part is how invisible it feels. Because chips don't feel like a meal. They don't feel like a decision. They feel like a background activity, something you just snack on. And that's exactly why they're so hard to control and so easy to overeat. 11. Donuts, pastries, and packaged cookies and pies. Now we move into something that most people don't even question anymore. Donuts, pastries, cookies, pies, the kind you grab in the morning, or after lunch, or just because they're there. They feel small, they feel harmless. They even feel like a little reward in your day. But inside, the structure of these foods tells a very different story. Because most of them are built from refined flour, large amounts of added sugar, and processed fats, sometimes even low-quality oils that are designed to extend shelf life and improve texture. But your body doesn't treat it like a small snack. Therefore, your blood sugar rises very quickly, and then insulin drops it back down just as fast, leaving you with a crash. And that crash is what drives the cycle. Because suddenly you feel tired again, you feel hungry again, and your body starts asking for more quick energy, more sugar, more food. But over time, this isn't just about cravings. When this pattern repeats consistently, it contributes to insulin resistance, fat storage, and long-term metabolic stress on the body. And the most deceptive part is the size, because these foods don't feel like real meals. They feel like little treats. Just one donut, just one cookie, just a small slice. But those small moments are what stack up over time. 10. Processed cheese and cheese products. Now let's talk about something that surprises a lot of people. Cheese. Because real cheese, in moderation, can be part of a balanced diet. But processed cheese products are something completely different. These are not just dairy anymore. They are industrial food products made by blending cheese with emulsifiers, stabilizers, artificial colors, added sodium, and low-quality fats to create something that melts easily, lasts longer, and costs less. So when you eat them, it still feels familiar. It still feels like cheese. But what your body's actually getting is a heavily modified version of it. And the problem is what comes with that processing. But the sodium levels are often much higher than natural cheese. Therefore, regular consumption can contribute to increased blood pressure over time. And the added emulsifiers and additives may also affect gut balance when consumed frequently. And the danger is subtle again, because you don't feel immediate harm. You don't notice anything happening after one slice or one sandwich. But the issue is not the moment, it's the habit. Because processed cheese often shows up in fast foods, packaged meals, snacks, and everyday convenience foods without people realizing how often they're actually consuming it. And over time, that repeated exposure adds up more than most people expect. 9. Canned soups and processed ready meals. Now let's talk about something that feels like a solution, but often becomes part of the problem. Canned soups and processed ready meals. Because on the surface, they look like convenience. You're busy, you don't have time to cook, so you grab something quick, heat it up, and eat. It feels practical, it feels efficient, it even feels responsible compared to fast food. But what's inside tells a different story. Most canned soups and ready meals are extremely high in sodium, often far beyond what your body actually needs in a single serving. On top of that, many contain preservatives, flavor enhancers, and hidden sugars used to improve taste and shelf life. But your body immediately starts dealing with the sodium load. Therefore, your blood pressure can gradually increase over time with frequent intake. And your kidneys are forced to work harder to filter and balance the excess salt. And the issue is not just salt, because these meals are often low in fresh nutrients, low in fiber, and not very satisfying in the long run. So even though you've eaten a full portion, your body doesn't always feel properly nourished. And that leads to another pattern. You eat it, feel full for a moment, and then not long after, you start looking for more food again. But the real danger is how normal it feels, because it's not seen as junk food, it's seen as home food, emergency food, backup food, something safe to rely on when you don't have time. And that's exactly why it quietly becomes a regular part of people's diets without much questioning. But over time, that consistency is what turns convenience into risk. 8. Margarine and artificial spreads with trans fats. Now let's talk about something that was once marketed as the healthy choice: margarine and artificial spreads. For years, people were told this was better than butter. Lower fat, better for the heart, a smarter alternative. But what most people didn't realize was how it was actually made. Many traditional margarines were produced using partially hydrogenated oils, which contain trans fats. And trans fats are one of the most harmful types of fats for cardiovascular health. So when you spread it on toast or use it in cooking, it feels completely normal. It feels like a simple swap. But inside your body, the process is very different. But your LDL cholesterol begins to rise. Therefore, your HDL cholesterol can drop over time, and that imbalance increases strain on your heart and blood vessels. And the danger is not in one meal, it's in repeated exposure over time. Because even small amounts of trans fats consumed regularly can slowly increase the risk of heart disease without immediate warning signs. And that's what makes it especially deceptive, because there is no sudden reaction, no instant symptom, just a gradual change happening quietly inside the body. And the most surprising part is that many countries have now banned or heavily restricted trans fats in food production. But even today, some processed foods and spreads can still contain trace amounts depending on how they're made. So what once looked like a healthier alternative turned out to be one of the more dangerous long-term choices when consumed consistently. 7. Energy drinks and sports drinks. Now let's move to something that feels like energy in a can. Energy drinks and sports drinks. These are heavily marketed toward people who are tired, busy, stressed, or trying to push through long days. The message is simple. Drink this and you'll feel more awake, more focused, more powerful. And for a short moment, that actually feels true. Because when you drink an energy drink, the combination of caffeine, sugar, and stimulants hits your system quickly. But your heart rate increases almost immediately. Therefore, your brain feels more alert and stimulated, and your body enters a temporary high-energy state. But that state doesn't last, because what goes up quickly also comes down quickly. And after the stimulation wears off, many people experience a crash in energy, focus, and mood. Sometimes even more fatigue than before. And that's where the cycle begins. Because once your body gets used to that artificial boost, normal energy starts to feel weaker in comparison. So you reach for another can, then another, creating a dependency loop on stimulation instead of real energy. And the concern goes deeper than just energy levels. High caffeine intake can strain the nervous system, affect sleep quality, and in some individuals contribute to heart rhythm issues or anxiety symptoms when consumed frequently or in large amounts. Now, sports drinks are often grouped in the same category, but for a different reason. They are designed to replace electrolytes during intense physical activity. But for most people who are not doing long-duration, high-intensity exercise, they often just become another source of added sugar and unnecessary calories. So instead of improving performance, they quietly add extra energy your body didn't actually need. And the most deceptive part is the branding. Because they don't feel like soft drinks. They feel like performance tools, like something athletes use, something healthy adjacent. But in reality, for the average person, they often function more like sugary beverages with added marketing. 6. Sugary sodas and sweetened beverages, including diet versions. Now we get to one of the most common daily habits in the world. Sugary sodas and sweetened beverages. These drinks feel harmless because they're just liquid. You're not eating anything. It doesn't feel heavy. It doesn't feel like a meal. It just feels like something to refresh you, cool you down, or go with your food. But your body doesn't see it that way at all. Because the moment you drink a soda, the sugar enters your bloodstream extremely fast. There's no fiber, no digestion delay, nothing to slow it down. So what happens is almost immediate, but your blood sugar spikes sharply within minutes. Therefore, your liver is forced to process a large load of sugar at once. And any excess is quickly converted into fat, especially around the liver and abdomen. And that's where the long-term problem starts building. Because when this happens repeatedly, your body starts developing a pattern of sugar overload. This is strongly linked in research to weight gain, fatty liver disease, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. But what makes soda especially dangerous is how easy it is to consume without noticing. Because you can drink hundreds of calories in seconds and still not feel full. Your brain doesn't register liquid calories the same way it registers solid food. So instead of replacing a meal, it gets added on top of everything else. And then there's the diet version, because many people switch to diet sodas thinking they've solved the problem. No sugar, no calories. So it must be safe, right? But the reality is more complicated. While they remove sugar, artificial sweeteners may still affect appetite signals and cravings in some individuals, and they don't really retrain your body away from sweet taste dependence. So the habit often stays the same, just in a different form. And the most dangerous part is how normal it is, because soda is everywhere. Meals, restaurants, parties, fast food combos. It becomes part of everyday life without even being questioned. But over time, that everyday habit is what quietly builds long-term metabolic stress in the body. 5. Fast food burgers and fried chicken nuggets. Now we're getting into something most people don't just eat occasionally. They build routines around it. Fast food burgers and fried chicken nuggets. At first glance, it feels simple. You're hungry, you're busy, you want something quick and satisfying. So you pull into a drive-thru, order a combo meal, and within minutes, you have food in your hands. And in that moment, it feels like a solution. But what's actually inside that meal is far more complex than it looks. Because a typical fast food burger isn't just meat and bread. It's usually a combination of refined buns, processed meat, industrial oils, high-sodium sauces, preservatives, and flavor enhancers, all engineered to maximize taste and repeat cravings. But your brain immediately responds to the salt, fat, and flavor intensity. Therefore, you feel an instant reward response and satisfaction. And that's exactly what makes it so easy to overeat. But the body tells a different story afterward. Because these meals are often very high in calories but not very nutrient dense. That means you get a lot of energy intake without the vitamins, fiber, or balance your body actually needs. And over time, frequent consumption can contribute to weight gain, inflammation, and increased risk of heart and metabolic diseases. But the most important thing to understand is this. Fast food isn't dangerous because of one meal. It becomes dangerous when it turns into a pattern, a default option, a weekly habit, a lifestyle choice made out of convenience rather than intention. And that's where the real risk builds quietly. 4. Alcohol. Now we move into something different, because this one is socially accepted almost everywhere in the world. Alcohol. It shows up at celebrations, parties, dinners, weekends, and even casual hangouts. In many cultures, it's not just common, it's expected. And because of that, most people don't see it as something harmful in the moment. It feels like relaxation. It feels like stress relief. It feels like connection. But biologically, your body treats alcohol very differently. Because alcohol is a toxic substance that the body prioritizes breaking down immediately. Your liver essentially shifts focus to processing it before almost anything else. But it quickly enters your bloodstream and affects your brain, slowing reaction time and altering judgment. Therefore, your liver goes into high-demand processing mode to break it down. And over time, repeated exposure increases stress on multiple organ systems. And the long-term risks are well documented. Regular or excessive alcohol consumption is strongly linked to liver disease, increased risk of certain cancers, high blood pressure, and long-term effects on sleep quality and mental health. But the most deceptive part is how normal it feels socially. Because alcohol isn't usually seen as a health decision. It's seen as part of life events, celebrations, and social bonding. So people don't think in terms of long-term impact in the moment. But the body always keeps a record of repeated exposure over time. And that's where the real damage quietly builds. 3. Raw or undercooked meat, poultry, and eggs. Now this one is not about long-term buildup alone. This is about immediate risk. Raw or undercooked meat, poultry, and eggs. This is one of those situations where food can look completely normal, smell fine, even taste fresh, and still carry something dangerous inside it. Because when animal products are not cooked properly, they can harbor harmful bacteria and pathogens like Salmonella, E. coli, Campylobacter, or Listeria. And you don't see them, you don't taste them, you don't feel them at first. So you eat the food thinking everything is fine. But inside the body, the reaction can be very different. But your immune system suddenly detects a foreign threat. Therefore, it goes into defense mode to fight the infection. And that can lead to symptoms like stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and in severe cases, hospitalization. And the tricky part is that contamination doesn't always depend on how the food looks. Even food that appears perfectly fine can still carry harmful microorganisms if it hasn't been handled or cooked properly. That's what makes this risk so unpredictable. And while anyone can be affected, the danger is even higher for children, elderly individuals, pregnant women, and people with weaker immune systems. But the key difference with this category is control. Because unlike many other foods on this list, this risk can be greatly reduced through proper cooking and food handling. Heat changes everything. When food is cooked to safe internal temperatures, most of these harmful organisms are destroyed, dramatically reducing the risk. But when it's not, the danger remains hidden until the body reacts. 2. Processed meats, bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats. Now we're entering one of the most heavily studied danger zones in modern diets. Processed meats, bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli slices. These foods are everywhere. Breakfast tables, sandwiches, quick snacks, fast meals. They feel normal, even traditional in many cultures. But what makes them different from regular meat is not just the cut, it's the processing. Because these products are preserved using methods like curing, smoking, salting, and adding chemical preservatives such as nitrates and nitrites to extend shelf life and enhance flavor. So when you eat them, it still feels like protein. It still feels like food. But inside the body, the chemistry changes. But during digestion and processing, some of these compounds can form harmful byproducts. Therefore, long-term consumption has been strongly linked in large studies to increased risk of colorectal cancer. And at the same time, the high sodium and saturated fat content places extra strain on cardiovascular health. And this isn't based on speculation. Major health organizations, including the World Health Organization, have classified processed meats as carcinogenic to humans, based on consistent evidence linking them to cancer risk. But the most important thing to understand is this: it's not about eating it once, it's about repetition. Because when processed meats become a regular part of your diet, the exposure adds up silently over years, increasing long-term health risks without any immediate warning signs. And that's what makes it one of the most concerning categories in everyday eating. 1. Ultra-processed foods overall, ready-to-eat packaged items. Now we reach the number one category, and this is the foundation of almost everything we've talked about in this entire video. Ultra-processed foods overall. This is not just one food, it's the system behind modern eating. Packaged snacks, instant noodles, frozen meals, sugary breakfast products, flavored drinks, processed desserts, fast convenience foods. All of it falls under this category. At first, they feel like survival tools for modern life. Fast, cheap, easy, available everywhere. But what makes them so powerful is also what makes them dangerous. Because ultra-processed foods are designed for hyperpalatability, that means they are engineered to hit the perfect combination of sugar, salt, fat, and artificial flavor that keeps you wanting more. But your brain receives an unusually strong reward signal. Therefore, your natural fullness and hunger signals start to become less reliable over time. And that leads to eating more than your body actually needs. And the impact doesn't stop there. Large-scale studies have linked high consumption of ultra-processed foods to increased risks of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, depression, and even early mortality. But the most dangerous part is how invisible it is in daily life. Because nobody sits down and says, "I'm eating ultra-processed food today." It shows up as breakfast, lunch, snacks, drinks, and quick meals that feel completely normal. And that's the real trap. It doesn't feel like a diet problem. It feels like just eating. But when you zoom out, it becomes clear that this isn't about one food at all. It's about a pattern. A pattern that slowly reshapes health, energy, and long-term well-being without most people ever realizing it's happening. And that's why this category sits at number one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. And don't go just yet. Check out the video on your screen now for more incredible video you won't want to miss.